That all changed. November 15th, 2021. I got fired because I refused to take at my job, an industrial manufacturer supplier in the industrial supply business. I got fired because I refused to take a mandate, and I also exposed the executive leadership for exempting themselves. So mind you, in a $3 billion company, they wanted all of us to take the shots. That was a huge turning point in my life. Enough was enough. And so from that point, after I call it my Fearless Freedom Day, because it was finally the wake-up call to propel action.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Hey, Danielle Walker here. I'd love for you to check out my online boutique, Lux Lion. My mission for Lux Lion is to showcase innovative African designers and sustainable mission-driven brands. To do that, I bring you stunningly beautiful handcrafted jewelry and accessories from some of my absolute favorite places on earth. Small batch wholesale for storefronts is also available. Join me in celebrating African artistry and shop now at luxlion.us. Use promo code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your purchase. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith and the Constitution, and we are committed to the core principles of giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It's Tuesday, October 7th. It's a few minutes after 10 a.m. Central because of tech gremlins, but we have prevailed. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Chris Alexander. We are coming to you live on Voice of the People, USA TV and Radio Network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. If you're catching us later, you can catch us on any podcast platform that you like, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We just ask that you give us a like, give us a thumbs up if you're in the chat, leave a comment. Y'all engage with us. We're here for you, and we're so proud to be here with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have a special guest with us. Brenden Craig is running for city court judge in Baton Rouge. He's been in city courtrooms as a practicing attorney for 16 years, and he's running on a platform of ensuring that justice is administered with fairness for every citizen. And then on the second half of the show, we'll have Amy Young joining us. She's also known as Ohio Amy. She's the executive director, stage announcer, event coordinator, and tour guide for the Stay Awake America Tour. They were in Grandview, Texas last week, and they have a few more stops on their tour this year. So we'll be getting to hear from her about that. Before we do, and just a note to everyone watching, our friend Brenden Craig is joining us by phone. So you won't see him on the screen, but we'll be hearing from him shortly, right after the scripture of the day. And that is Matthew chapter 17, verses 10 through 13 today. And it says, let me see. All right. His disciples asked him, "Why do all the religious scholars insist that Elijah must first appear before the Anointed One comes?" He answered them, "They're right. Elijah must come first and restore all things, but Elijah has already appeared, and yet they didn't recognize him. So they did to him whatever they pleased, and the Son of Man is destined to suffer the same abuse as what they did to him." Then the disciples realized that Jesus was referring to John the Baptist all along. And the disciples were asking this of Jesus when they hiked down the mountain after Jesus' transfiguration. It was James, John, and Peter. And that's where Moses and Elijah both appeared. So they were connecting Elijah's appearance to the prophecy of the Messiah as they understood it. They understood the scripture they'd been taught at face value, but Jesus explained to them that the Elijah mentioned really pointed to John the Baptist, because John the Baptist carried the same anointing that Elijah did. And this is just, as I was reading that, I just thought it was a great example of how the scriptures are alive and how they have layers of meaning. And with Jesus's help, the disciples were able to understand the fullness of the prophecy. And we have Holy Spirit to call upon and ask for help in understanding the scriptures as we read them today. He turns on the light of revelation for us, and he leads us into all truth.
And didn't he say, Danielle, didn't Jesus say that many didn't recognize John the Baptist? Yeah. And I thought as you were reading the prayer that, I would not want to be in a situation where one of God's great prophets were to appear tomorrow, or even Jesus himself, and not recognize him. I want to be one who recognizes him. I want to be one who knows him and has no doubt that that's him, because a lot of people didn't recognize who he was during his day. A lot of people didn't recognize John the Baptist. And it really is a charge for me personally to make sure that I'm in a state of mind and a state of spiritual awareness that I recognize the Savior. And I pray humbly that I will.
I love that, Chris. And I just want to add to what you're saying, because Jesus said to Peter, Jesus asked, who do they say I am? And Peter said, they said who other people said he is. And he said, who do you say I am? And Peter said, you're the Messiah. And if you recall, Jesus said, you didn't say this of your own volition. God the Father revealed that to you. And so just to underscore the exact point of this whole scripture this morning is that it does take the Lord for us to understand our times. It takes the Lord to understand what we're walking through. It takes the Lord to understand the scriptures. And so, as you said, being guided by Holy Spirit is the way that we'll be able to do that. And I just think it's a great reminder, we're not going to understand what we're living through on our own.
Exactly. Without that perspective. And as we know, Danielle, everything that we do ultimately, is informed by God's justice. And there are a few places in our country, in our city, and in our state where justice is more important, no place rather than in court, where justice is supposed to be blind. As you mentioned earlier, Brenden Craig, candidate for Baton Rouge City Court judge, is with us today. I've known Brenden for a long, long time. I've always respected him, both as a lawyer and as a man of principle. And that's why I wanted to have him on this morning. The early voting is over now. The election is this Saturday. So here to talk to us is the man himself, Brenden Craig. Brenden, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join us on the State of Freedom this morning.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Danielle. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here with y'all.
Yeah, I know you're not busy at all these last 2 or 3 days before the election. I know you have nothing going on except, bonbons and just margaritas in the
back,
sun.
Yeah, making exactly. a slow spaghetti sauce every day. It's fun, Yeah.
Right, exactly. So what, you have one candidate, Brenden, and what is your platform for the benefit of our listeners who've not had the opportunity to listen to you or meet you? What is your platform generally going into the election?
Gotcha. Well, first of all, I apologize. I couldn't appear visually. I had some scheduling conflicts, and so I got stuck only on the phone. So my apologies for that. But as far as my platform, one of the biggest things about city court that we have, one of the biggest problems we have in city court is that we have 133,000 bench warrants in city court alone. That's a whole lot, and that causes a lot of problems for our community. One of the reasons we have so many bench warrants is, the vast majority of them are, in fact, for traffic tickets, okay? And so what happens is, and I've seen it time and time again, is that somebody might get a traffic ticket for a rather minor violation or whatever the violation may be. But a lot of times it's minor stuff like expired inspection sticker, registration, obscured plate. And then they get that ticket. They can't afford to pay it and they get scared. So if I go in and I can't afford to pay it, what is the judge going to say? So they just don't go in. And then, that bench warrant, the fact that they didn't show up, it gets sent to the DMV, their license gets suspended. It takes a lot more time, effort, and money on their part to get it all straightened out. And additionally, so now you have more unlicensed drivers on the road, which makes it harder for them to get car insurance, which raises all our rates in the end of the day. But what I want people to know is that if you can't afford to pay your ticket, just come in and talk to me about it. I can work with people. I can give people time. Chris, you've been a criminal defense attorney. We charge flat fees. We say, look, this is the total cost. This is what we need up front. You can pay the balance monthly. I've always said that, if somebody can't afford to pay 1 month, that's all right. Just call me, let me know, shoot me a text. I'll work with you, because I don't want people to have to choose between paying their light bill, paying their rent, and paying their attorney. At the same time, I don't want to see them at the blackjack table or dropping dollars at the slot machine. But I want them to go ahead and take care of it, and I'll work with people. I'd be the same way as a judge. I would be the same way as a
Brenden,
judge.
let me just say this, because I have personal experience myself working with you over many years, and I've seen how you've dealt with your own clients, and you've always dealt with your clients in a way that's respectful, and always your default position is always to continue to work with your clients to get them to a good solution. You don't give up on your clients. And have no reason to believe that you would be any different with regard to a defendant before you as a judge.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to think that would be the same. I see the good in people. And I want Baton Rouge to be the best place it possibly can be for all of us. And, like I said, I would want people to know that just come on in if you can't afford to pay your ticket. The problem is that, if somebody doesn't come in, then I would have no choice if I'm elected. I'd have to issue the bench warrant. And that's just the law. And so I want people to know that. I want everybody in the city to know that. It's not just the people that can vote for me. It's the entire city, because if the entire city doesn't know, or if anybody that gets a ticket doesn't know that, then, the message doesn't get across to where it needs to be. Yeah. And we can't reduce the amount of bench warrants we have in city court.
Right.
And Brenden, what kind of cases besides traffic violations do city courts hear for those of us who are not attorneys and who fortunately have not had the misfortune, I guess, of having to go to court and find this out the hard way?
Sure. City court, the vast majority of the docket is in fact traffic tickets. Okay. And then after that, you're going to have misdemeanors. The worst of those you're going to see would be DWI second offense, and domestic abuse battery, which is a serious problem in our community, a very serious problem. And I would certainly be, I can certainly be tough on those who batter their spouses or their children. And then after misdemeanors, you're going to see civil suits up to 35,000, small claims, and evictions. And that's basically the entirety of the docket in the city.
Yeah. So you'll be handling criminal, traffic, and civil cases in city court.
Correct.
And you've done
smaller
all
civil matters.
Yeah, smaller civil matters.
I have.
You've done all that.
Yeah. I have. My first civil and criminal trials, in fact, were in city court.
Yeah. One thing that jumped out at me, Brenden, when I was reading about you was the idea that Baton Rouge City Court, and I think there are a lot of people who would agree with this, is sort of an organ of revenue harvesting. Is much as it is a court of justice. And you have an interesting proposal to maybe move away from that and allow defendants to do meaningful community service in lieu of paying all these fines that set them back financially. And as you said, sometimes make them choose between, feeding their family or paying their mortgage and paying their court fines. And I thought that was intriguing. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So Baton Rouge City Court, fairly or unfairly, has been called, just simply a moneymaker for the city, a revenue generator. I don't know. I won't opine on that at the moment, but somebody that can't afford to pay their ticket, I don't necessarily want them to keep coming back over and over again, keep telling me that, Judge, I can't afford to pay a ticket, and just give him another date to come pay, because then we don't get anything done, and then their docket would, in fact, get clogged up. But so at some point, if they want to do community service, they can certainly do that. And community service is already offered. I don't necessarily like the rates sometimes that they're offered. So what I can perhaps do as a judge is I'd like to be able to tell people, if you make $15 an hour at your job, I'll give you $30 an hour community service credit. That way, if you have, let's say, $120 fine, you can, and all of this is assuming you're found guilty of the traffic infraction anyway, right? But assuming you were guilty or you pled guilty to the traffic infraction, you have a $120 fine. Then I can give you $30. I could, offer $30 an hour community service if I'm elected, and then that way, instead of working your job all day for 8 hours to pay off that fine at $15 an hour, you could go do 4 hours community service, work off the traffic matter, and then still have 4 hours in a day to go to work and make yourself $60.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I like that idea.
Along those lines, you said something a minute ago, assuming you're found guilty of something, and that reminded me that cases are tried in Baton Rouge City Court. There are trials there, and those
They are.
trials have great significance and great consequence to both the defendants, the city, and the prosecutors. Brenden, you and I both have tried a lot of cases in Baton Rouge City Court. And my question to you is, as a judge, how do you view the presumption of innocence, the burden of proof that the prosecutor is required to maintain? We've both known judges who will go unnamed now who never seem to find a case in which a defendant is not guilty, no matter what the evidence is. And then
Hmm.
there are judges that never seem to find a case in which a defendant is innocent, no matter what the evidence is. So, how do you foresee approaching the constitutional requirement that a defendant is presumed innocent and the prosecution must prove the case with competent evidence by proof beyond reasonable doubt in every case?
Well, you're right. Every case, and you said it. It is the presumption of innocence. I mean, that's exactly what it means. As in city court, they're bench trials, so the judge is the fact finder, and so you got to go in as the judge knowing that okay, there's nothing against the defendant right now. If right now, or let's say the trial begins, the prosecutor presents the affidavit charging the defendant, and at that point, without anything else, they're not guilty. Period. Okay, because the charging instrument is not evidence of guilt. It's simply the
Exactly.
charging instrument, and you have to at that point it's still the presumption of innocence, and then so the prosecution still obviously has to meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is in fact guilty. And you mentioned it. There have been some judges that in the past that we've both been in front of that perhaps in their mind that proof beyond a reasonable doubt is really just more along the lines of probable cause. Yeah, they probably did it, and I think that's it's obviously unconstitutional, but I think it's completely unfair to the defendant. The proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high burden. It's the highest burden we have, and as a judge, I'd make sure that the prosecutor absolutely meets that burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt before I would find anybody guilty of any infraction or crime.
That's great to hear. Now, Brenden, this race on its face is a race between two Republicans, yourself
Mm-hmm.
and one other. How would you say, what differentiates you from your opponent?
So, my opponent, Ms. Boudreaux, she's a wonderful attorney. I didn't meet her until I guess probably January. I met her once, and I've seen her a few times since the qualification period ended, and during the campaign. And she's everything I've heard is she's a wonderful attorney. She's a medical malpractice defense attorney, at a very, very highly regarded firm here in town. She's been there forever. She's done that her whole career, and she's very, very good at it. As far as how we're different though is, I've represented hundreds and hundreds of people in city court over the years. I have tons of experience in city court. When I first got out of law school, I worked for a guy named Jamie Rothkam, and I was the city court guy. And so I would go to city court every morning with 10, 15 files and handle them. And that was every day of the week. And so, I know city court. I know what works well. I know what doesn't work well. And so it's really just, what differentiates us is the city court experience. And I've got it.
Great.
And you really can't emphasize that enough, and certainly not to impugn your opponent at all. As you said, I've never met her, and I'm sure, that she's a very fine lawyer, but there's nothing in the practice of medical malpractice that really qualifies a lawyer for everything that you have to be prepared for in Baton Rouge City Court. And you never know really what you're going to see there from one day to the next. It's a huge docket that has to be run efficiently. And as you said, it's civil cases, traffic cases, criminal cases. And it's just so important, not only from a procedural standpoint, that the judge knows what he's doing, but also has an understanding of substantive criminal law and the Constitution and what the mechanism is whereby you try a criminal case and a civil case for that matter. And so I do believe that is truly distinguishes you from your opponent insofar as you're not going to have a 6-week or a 2-month or a 3-month learning curve when you get there, as she will have. You're going to be able to get on the bench on day one and know exactly what you're doing. And I think that is an estimable benefit to defendants who appear before you. It's a benefit to the prosecutors. It makes their process smoother. And it's just a benefit to the whole system, to the economy of the judicial system. And so I think that's important that you continue to point that distinction out.
Well, thank you, Chris. And yeah, I do. I know. Yes, in fact, I do know that I could jump in there on day one and not have a problem with it at all. I would know exactly what I'm doing behind the bench. Like I said, I can't. I don't know how many times I've walked through those doors as a lawyer, and I've seen a ton of stuff in city court. I know how it works, and I could jump right in, not have a problem.
Yeah, and like I said, I've seen it, and many others have seen it as well. The way you conduct yourself, which is always with great professional decorum and respect. And one thing that I know you will have is respect for everyone who appears before you. You and I have both also been in front of judges who often do not respect the people who appear in front of them, and they don't treat them fairly or with any degree of graciousness. And I know that you will. And that's just not my opinion. That's based upon a body of work over a course of 16 or 18 years and seeing you operate. And unless you have a doppelganger out there somewhere who is going to go up and assume an entirely different personality, I think we'll be in good hands with you. But I want to ask you this last question before you go, Brenden, because I asked this question to every candidate when they're on the verge of election day. What is it that you want people to think about, maybe who haven't made up their minds, as they go in to vote on election day? A lot of people will be voting. What do you want them to think about when they're trying to make a decision between you and your opponent and who to pull this lever for?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. So, I mentioned earlier I don't want people to be afraid to come into city court if they can't afford to pay their ticket. And that's, Chris, when somebody gets a bench warrant, it's contempt of court. And so contempt of court is a contumacious failure to appear. And contumacious simply means willfully disobedient. It's an utter and complete disregard for the authority of the court. I don't necessarily, consider fear of going in because you can't afford to pay your ticket. I don't consider that necessarily to be a contumacious failure to appear. However, there's a very big worry about crime in Baton Rouge at the moment. There's a lot of discussions about, some judges in the 19th JDC giving ridiculously low bonds to very, very violent offenders, and then those guys getting out and reoffending. Honestly, look, there's a lot of merit to that. As criminal defense attorney, we get preset bonds for clients that have arrest warrants, and I'll go present the warrant to a judge and ask for a preset bond. And sometimes I'm looking for $50,000 and I'll get 25, and I say, oh, okay, well, I'll take it. But so what a city court judge can do, however, is when you have instances like that, where you've got an individual who's been arrested for a very serious violent offense, such as murder, attempted murder, rape, robbery, whatever it may be. A lot of those guys have city court bench warrants, multiple city court bench warrants. And when somebody is out there committing very heinous offenses and they're not even bothering to take care of their basic city court traffic matters, yeah, you could certainly consider that. One could certainly argue that is, in fact, a contumacious failure to appear. That is very willfully disobedient of the authority of the court. And so what a city court judge can do to help crime, to help lower crime in our city is when those individuals are arrested, regardless of how low their bond may be for that violent offense, if they've got multiple city court warrants or even just one, they still have to go to call out before they bond out. So they get arrested, they get a bond set for the violent offense, and then before they can bond out, they've got to go, usually on TV court, before a city court judge and have their contempt of court hearings relating to those bench warrants. And so a city court judge can, in fact, give that individual 6 months on each and stack them on top of each other. Obviously, the defendant would have a right to be heard under the statute, and you can listen to his defense, but it's a summary proceeding. a city court judge can give that individual 6 months on each, can stack them on top of each other. And, if somebody has 8 bench warrants, city court judge, sometimes it may be necessary to give that individual 4 years, 6 months on each, run them consecutive, parish prison. So it doesn't matter what their bond is, they're not getting out. So in that respect, a city court judge can in fact be a bulwark against really, really low bonds being set for violent offenders.
And you would not hesitate to do that under appropriate circumstances.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Last question, Brenden. There are some who say Brenden Craig, he's practiced many years as a criminal defense lawyer. He has defended people who are accused of crimes. And therefore, there's a chance that his view of the judicial system and perhaps the way he would administer justice from the bench is skewed by his own experience because he hasn't prosecuted. You have strictly defended. And I want to ask you, is there any concern about whether you can completely remove any partisanship about guilt, innocence, or previous position of advocacy when you get on the bench and be entirely and completely objective and fair to both sides?
So I understand that a lot of people, look, I can see how people might think that. A lot of times, people have the mindset, okay, well, this person was a prosecutor, now they're a judge, so they're going to be prosecution friendly. Okay, well, this person was a defense attorney, now they're going to be defense friendly. Well, look, I mean, I've been a criminal defense attorney. I do my job, and I think I do my job pretty well. And I'm a zealous advocate for my clients because that is what I'm supposed to do. That is what the Constitution requires. However, judges, on the other hand, if I'm elected, my job would then simply be to be a judge, not a zealous advocate for either side. A judge calls balls and strikes, period. Okay. And I would understand my role. I would take my oath very seriously. And that role is simply to be a neutral arbiter of the facts and the law. And that's it. It's really, really that simple. And to anybody who's worried that I would simply be defense friendly, I can promise you I would not be. I'm going to follow the law and I'm going to rule fairly. And I'm going to approach every case from a neutral perspective, always remembering, of course, as you mentioned at the beginning, is that the defendant does start with a presumption of innocence. However, I'm going to be fair to the prosecution. I'm going to be fair to the defense. I don't know how to put it any other way, is that I will objectively be a neutral arbiter of the facts and the law as a judge should be.
Well, we have no doubt that that will be the case. We wish you the very best of luck on Saturday. Very little doubt in my mind that that we're leaning in the right direction with you. I think you're going to be a very good judge, and it's a privilege to have you with us here today.
Thank you very much for having me. I certainly appreciate it. And thank you, Danielle, too.
Thanks, Brenden. Best wishes in your race.
Thank you so much. And everybody, don't forget to go vote. It's going to be a very, very low turnout election. So check your sample ballots, see if you're in the voting district, go on the Secretary of State's website, check your sample ballot, see if you can go out and vote for city court judge. It's very, very low turnout. In this case, every vote will carry more weight simply because of the amount of votes cast. And so your vote is going to be heard. It's going to matter. And I hope you pull the lever for me.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us, Judge Craig. God bless you, sir.
Knock on wood, huh?
Knock on wood.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Y'all, thank you. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's welcome in Amy. She's here. Amy, you there with us?
Yes.
Awesome.
Hello,
Thank you.
Amy.
This is our first time kind of doing 2 segments in a single show, but we had 2 great people we wanted to get in today. You might have to turn your camera the other way or your phone the other way. Sorry about that. But you are the executive director of the Stay Awake America Tour, and we're so thrilled to have you with us. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, and I look forward to hearing what you got to tell us about the tour.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be on. Thank you so much. Yeah, I am en route driving back, second day driving from Texas. So this past weekend was our Stay Awake America Tour, Texas, in Grandview, Texas. So,
and it looked like you had a great lineup.
We had a fantastic lineup. A lot of 20 national speakers, Judy Mikovich, Dr. an artist. We had the band, a Christian rock band. I believe you guys had interviewed them in the past. Casper McLeod, Pastor Castor. So we have Pastor
No.
Casper McLeod. No? Okay. I thought I had coordinated that. And then we had a number of different candidates that are running for different state offices and federal offices in Texas. We had Doc Pete Chambers, who is running for governor of Texas. Then we also had Valentina Gomez, and she's running for federal U.S. Congress or district. We had Timothy Mabry, who's running for lieutenant governor in Texas. Also, we had J. Stuart Rhodes,
Stuart Rhodes.
Rhodes.
Yeah. How did you get involved, Amy, in this movement spreading freedom and truth and constitutional government and biblical principles and all the other good things that we need to be reminded of? How did you get involved?
Absolutely. Well, I turned into a mama bear 2020, like a lot of other mothers. Prior to that, I woke up when the financial crisis of '08. It was a light bulb that went off in my mind. When Benghazi came on to be, was a huge. It was like a slap in the face. They think we're idiots. I've got to do some research. I've been in sales for 34 plus years in multiple industries, but never in politics, never in media or broadcasting, these of that sort. After Benghazi, I became a lot more outspoken. I've always been on top of politics, interested, involved, but raising a family. We have 6 children, 4 grandchildren, and I'm taking care of my mom who has Parkinson's. So we're pretty busy. So I was just living my life, trying to get on, have a life like most of us Americans want. We want to be left alone and just take care of our family, enjoy a nice quiet life, have a vacation every now and then, right? And do a 40-hour work week and weekends off. Well, that all changed. November 15th, 2021. I got fired because I refused to take at my job an industrial manufacturer supplier. So in the industrial supply business, I got fired because I refused to take the mandate. And I also exposed the executive leadership for exempting themselves. So mind you, in a $3 billion company, they wanted all of us to take the shots, but it wasn't good enough for them. So at that point, that was a huge turning point in my life. Enough was enough. I had some layering to know that things didn't appear as they wanted the narrative for us to believe. And so from that point, after, I call it my Fearless Freedom Day, because it was finally the wake-up call to propel action.
Yeah.
In February, that following year, 2022, I demanded my husband to go with me to our first Reawaken America tour. And that was a huge God moment. In the middle of the night, the Reawaken America tour are 2-day events, Friday and a Saturday. Friday in the middle of the night, God woke me up in a sound sleep. And mind you, this had never... I have intuition, but I haven't had God speak to me before. So it was quite a pivotal moment. He woke me up and said, "Did you bring your resume?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, tomorrow at the hotel, go downstairs, he was very specific, print 3 resumes and get 3 envelopes and take them with you tomorrow. And I said, okay, who am I supposed to give them to? And as God does, he was silent. So woke up in the morning. I shared with my husband. He thought I was crazy. And I went downstairs, printed the resumes and brought them with me, put them in the envelopes, brought them with me. And we went back to the conference, listened. I had bought 4 tickets. Again, unemployed. My husband was like, "We don't need to go to this conference. It's silly to spend tickets, at this time." But instead of buying 2, I bought 4. Because I had referred to being a mama bear going back that summer when the mandates were coming out and people were getting coerced and told they had, it was very evident that they were going to have to take the shot. I started learning about affidavits. I had written 8 affidavits for family and friends. And I also was suing our local school district because I had two, my youngest sons were in high school and they were mandating the mask. Plus they had clinics on campus for the kids to conveniently get their shots. They weren't,
Wow.
No.
Wow.
the high school wasn't mandating, but they were highly encouraging. And so I defined it as bullying because across the corner was CVS. So
Yeah.
they could let them out at lunch if they so needed that shot so bad.
Yeah.
So in backpedaling, I was suing the local school board and I did it pro se. But then as they do, they brought out the guns and in the sense of, the highfalutin lawyers. And through my connections, I received a lawyer that would take our case and do it pro se. Jumping back to 4 tickets, I bought 2 tickets for my husband and 2 tickets for the lawyer because he lived in Canada, and I hadn't had the ability to meet him in person. We were always doing Skype and Zoom calls. So needless to say, I met him at the door to honor him with the tickets and lo and behold, I give him the tickets and he says to me, I just spoke to Clay Clark. He's going to give us backstage passes. And I'm sitting here in my brain, wow, he didn't need my tickets.
That's amazing.
He already had a way to go there. And so I text my husband really quick, who's sitting in the auditorium, and I said, we're going backstage. I'll be right back. Well, Warner Mendenhall is the lawyer. We went backstage. I was in awe. These were many speakers that I had been following for 4 or 5 years. General Flynn, huge admirer. And we were backstage. I whispered to Warner, the lawyer, I said, oh, it would be fantastic to meet General Flynn. He said, really? Walked up to General Flynn and said, this young lady would like to meet you. And General Flynn, as she does, so composed, he said, well, I'm just going on stage. I'll be right back. And as he did, he walked off stage. We walked off to the corner and he afforded me 45 minutes of one just speaking. And I'm just, admirated, I'm just like, wow, I'm sitting here speaking to General Flynn. And as I could tell that the conversation was winding down, my hand holding the 3 letters, which I went to the bathroom with, they did not leave my side from the time we left the hotel, is hitting, my hand's hitting the side of my thigh, thinking, and I said, General Flynn, I'm going to be bold. I shared with him that God told me to make these copies. And I said, I think I'm supposed to give one to you. So I handed in the copy, and it was very evident that his security came in, kind of swooped in. And he said, no, this is fine. And he asked me, he said, is your contact information on there? And I said, yes, sir, it's my resume. So he opened his suit jacket, put the envelope in his jacket, and we were on our way. Continued to meeting more people. At that point, I gave Ann Vandersteel my resume and also Clay Clark. We had it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So after that, we went home. I continued interviewing. And found another job, started working. So 3 months after the Canton Reawaken tour, I get a phone call, and the gentleman introduces himself and says, hi, I General Flynn's right-hand man. I have your resume in front of me. What would you like to do? And
that's what you call selling yourself.
Stunning.
There. That is stunning.
And what was crazy is I answered the call, because typically, I think we can all kind of attest to this, that there was no number. It wasn't recognizable. Yeah. It wasn't in my contacts, but I just had a feeling. I was like, I answered it. And lo and behold, I said, sir, I want to save America. I want to do this full time. I am in this corporate rabbit hole, and I feel like the Lord is calling me to do this. I don't know what that means. Let's have a conversation. So from that, General Flynn put me and his different groups put me to work volunteering. I volunteered for I did a Border 911 event, helped with media on that side. Then I did a election integrity event in Avalon, Ohio with Laura Logan, which was amazing. After that, I worked at 9 of the Reawaken America tours. In the media side, just volunteering, traveled all over. And then that leads to last fall, the last Reawaken America tour in Selma, Ohio. I was working that event and got the privilege to meet Pastor Casper McLeod, and he's of the Casper McLeod band. They're a Christian rock star. He's from the UK. He is Atlantic record rock star. He's played with all the great, but at a point he had a near-death experience, and from there on he started writing songs for Christ. And
wow.
Left the recording business, moved to the States, and has been a pastor at the Upper Fellowship. So needless to say, I met Casper McLeod. We immediately connected that day, and I continued speaking after the tour. He met with General Flynn because they were very good friends, and had a conversation. This was after the event in October, and then November, President Trump gets elected, and their conversation is after the election of President Trump. And they come to both agree that the greatest concern was America going back to sleep.
Yeah.
Having a false
big concern.
Security. Yes, that President Trump's got this. We can move on. We can go about our lives, and we're saved. And we know that's farthest from the truth.
Right.
There's not one man or one woman that's going to save us or save America until Jesus Christ walks again on this earth. And neither can President Trump alone, restore the republic or, affect and bring peace to the world. He needs our prayers. He needs our support loud and clear. But ultimately, he needs our action, local action, national impact. So with that conversation with General Flynn and Casper McLeod, they brought me into so this is how it went. Okay, Ohio Amy, can you create, organize, and promote the Stay Awake America tour? And I went, oh, no way. I'm way too busy. I have 6 kids, 4 grandchildren. I'm working full time. I was back in the industrial supply industry, very large territory. And I said, no, but I'll help anyway. You just tell me, I'll volunteer. Well, as God does, he taps you in the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And God kept tapping me on the shoulder and said, yes, daughter Amy, this is what I want you to do. And so Pastor, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Pastor Casper, and he likes to say he's not Pastor Casper of the Casper the ghost. He's Casper. He's not of the ghost. He's of the Holy Ghost.
Holy Ghost, right? Right. But make that distinction there for sure.
Yeah.
One thing.
Just blast forward.
Let me stop you for just a second. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, just to blast through, and then that'll be probably it'll lead you up to today. So God kept tapping me on the shoulder, and Casper and I kept speaking. We had another couple calls with General Flynn, said leading on to local action, national impact, which is his coined phrase, is as General Flynn does very well. He endorses, he encouraged, and then he says, go to work. So by January, I was in tune to the fact that, yes, we need to do this. And I agreed, let's do one. Let's do it in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I live. That'll be easy to manage. We'll see how it goes and we'll go from there. So we actually had our first event, the end of March in Delaware, Ohio at a church. And it was fantastic. Because of the Reawaken America events, I've been afforded some amazing connections. And when I approached all these different national speakers, they said, yes, when? And I confirmed to them, I said, we're a grassroots movement. We have no speaker fees. We have no travel costs. We are asking you to come, afford us your time, and we're walking on faith. We truly believe this is what God is calling us to do. And we know that we got a reprieve with Donald Trump being elected as president, but it's only allowed us to exhale. We need to get back to work. The midterms are around the corner. We cannot lose one seat in Congress or the U.S. House, or everything can be dissolved. All the work
True.
that has done. So it's immediate. We had success with Columbus, with Delaware, Ohio, and General Flynn could not be present, but he was in Rome and he recorded a video on his phone to speak to the audience and tell them why it's important to stay awake, why America needs to stay awake and get activated. So our mission is to unite, engage, and activate local action for national impact. So with the success of that one, we planned our second event in Venice, Florida, because that's where General Flynn lives. And so we knew we'd be able to have him actually be our headliner. In May of this year, I like to say I jumped off the cliff. I quit my job and inspired and am doing this full time. So our second event was a huge success. Patrick Byrne was there again. I can go into the list, but General Flynn was present. And then from there, the end of August, we went to Knoxville. And then just last weekend, we were in Texas. So we're walking by faith because we know this is God's calling for America to stay awake. We have limited time, and we need to let people know that each and every one of us are part of the solution. What sets us apart, our event, is the Reawake America was a wake-up call to deliver to people the information and truth that we're functioning under a lot of lies and deceptions.
Yeah.
And
So true.
now it's time to activate. So the difference of our event is we are delivering solutions. We've had enough of the rhetoric. We need to get to work. We're past due. We need to get to work and activate. So we're bringing hope with President Trump in office and people aware of the lies and deceptions. There is a vacuum for leadership. So there are people that are awake, but they're not really sure what to do. So what our purpose is to come in and to bring hope, because we know God's already won, but until then we need to occupy. So Luke 19:13 says, you will occupy until I return. So that is our responsibility, to occupy. So people, faith over fear, but then there's a vacuum. Okay, what do I do? Yeah. And so our purpose is to come in, bring hope, but ignite leadership. And through truth and freedom and solutions, that engages people for personal and spiritual sovereignty. So we are giving them detailed solutions of, where they can go next. And we're really bringing people the truth that you are the solution. Nobody else is going to come in and ride on a white horse and solve this. You need to be engaged and activate. First, it needs to start with yourself and your home. We need to take back our homes. We need to take back our education of our children. They are after our children. And whether that is education, nutrition, vaccines, health, we are delivering that information for mothers and for families to take back their homes. And as you take back your home and your personal spiritual sovereignty, then you can move out. But not until then can you really be powerful. So there are people at all different parts of life that just need to read the Bible, need to know that the truth is in their hands in the Bible, then take back their families. Then there's people that are already engaged, already running for school board, already in their communities and their churches. So they are looking for a greater piece of the puzzle.
Activation.
And then as we take back our homes, our communities, our churches, our states, then we can move into the federal level. But
Very
local
much so.
action, national impact.
Yeah. And Amy, as you were talking, you're describing exactly what I see. We're facing a war on so many fronts, and you think about President Trump, and if you could stand in his shoes for a second, you can probably see warriors all around you coming after you, right? Going after the people, because I do believe that the war is literally in every facet of life. It's not just fun, but one of the main areas that we have the ability to make extraordinary change in a short amount of time is the elections. If we can fix the elections, we can fix a whole lot faster. Because I was talking to my dad about this, I think yesterday, and I was like, why are we continuing on this ridiculous ruse of having elections? We're just trading out crooks, basically, by and large. Of course, there are good people running, and we need good people to run. And we just interviewed someone who's an honorable man that's running. But at the same time, the primary system in a lot of ways is hijacked. And how is the Stay Awake America Tour tackling election integrity? And with the vast number of influential people that you've had the opportunity to speak to over the last number of months, are you hopeful that we will see something click over soon that will make big change on that front?
Well, just like President Trump is working from the top down, we need to work from the bottom up, and we need to get involved. I mean, you can go all the way down to the detailed level of precinct strategy. We have so many precincts that aren't filled. That is actually the how our elections are supposed to be run. It's supposed to be in the precinct level, and then bring out to our representatives. So restoring the republic is a huge initiative within the speakers that we bring, but we really need to engage good people and get behind them so that they can run. One of our speakers is Dr. Douglas Frank. He's doing amazing work. And he is teaching. There's a lot of initiatives. What I found with volunteering at the Reawaken America Tour and affording all of these, I call them God connections, is a lot of people are doing great things, but they're in these little circles and not working together. So that's a huge initiative. Even in Texas last weekend, that was something we repeated. You are here for a reason. You are called here for a reason. Let us know what your skill set is. Let us know what your passion and purpose is, because all of us have different passion and purpose and skill sets. So we're hoping to connect people so they don't have to recreate the wheel.
Important. So important. Amy, that's one of the things that Danielle noticed. I know I certainly noticed when I first started Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group right here in Louisiana, was how fractured the advocacy groups were, and how unwilling, for whatever reason, they were to work with one another and compliment one another and give one another credit for doing great things. I never could understand that. And it was rather disillusioning for me because it's not my personality. It's not how I approach life. And fortunately, we have been able to consolidate with a number of other groups. And the greatest thing that we have going, it's We the People Bayou Community, We the People Northwest Louisiana, Louisiana Republican Assembly, my group, LeCag, others, the Republican Women of New Orleans. You know what we all have in common? Nobody cares who gets credit for anything.
That's right.
Nobody cares who gets the credit, and we're more inclined to give somebody else credit than to take credit for things. And I think that is strictly the grace of God that allows us to keep in mind what ultimately is important, because we truly do not care. And that's why I think we've been able to be effective. And so your point about that is critically important.
And I think both of you make a great point, because the thread that ties all of those groups you mentioned together, Chris, is exactly what you were saying, Amy. It's faith. It's belief that we're here for a higher purpose. We're not doing this for our own ego. We're not doing this to get our name in lights. We have a nation to save. We have a state to save. We have a community to save. And God has given us marching orders. And I think that's what we're seeing. And what a gift to be part of something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you'll look at all of our flyers. It's local. Our mission is to unite, engage, and activate local action for national impact, but all for the glory of God. And it's interesting when you walk in this circle, because you always get opinions and suggestions and whatnot. And there was a suggestion just after, I think, the second, or maybe after the third event, and someone said, "Oh, we'd be more in tune with you if you weren't so all about the glory of God, all about Christian. I said, well, then, we're not your cup of tea, because there is nothing more important than that.
That's right.
Since God put me in this position, my journey and my personal journey has just flourished and is just gotten so much stronger. Born and raised Catholic, I'm practicing, I'm a devout Catholic. My personal relationship with Christ is centered around the Eucharist. And, I know lies and deceptions. I see that within, organizations that, including in the Catholic Church, but that's a part of who I am. But my personal relationship has just grown because I've said that Isaiah 6:8 put me in. I'm an athlete, so I kind of paraphrase it. Put me in, coach. Put me in your will, not mine. And that's a big thing, Chris, that we articulate. Mission over ego. And that's where it gets jacked up, is when the ego gets in the center of it, and that's when good things turn rogue. And that's why it's so important that our mission has two things. Our Stay Awake America, we're going to be non-negotiables are we're going to always deliver solutions. We're done with rhetoric. If people aren't awake, we're just going to tell them, we'll catch up. But we're moving forward. We have no more time. It's critical that we keep driving towards being action.
Yeah.
So solutions and God. If that doesn't speak to you, that's fine, but that's what we're about. And that's what the call is about. And it's interesting, ever since it came up with Stay Awake America, it answers every question that's presented. They'll be like, well, this is happening today. This is happening today. Oh, this is the urgency, or this is the fear mongering, or this is, and it's like, that's right. Stay awake, America. Stay awake.
Yeah.
We know God wins, but we need to activate, and it's no longer a spectator sport. We are hanging on by a thread. And as America goes, so goes the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What do you say, Amy, to people who perhaps it's not fear with them, and perhaps it's not even not knowing what they could do? Maybe they're not particularly afraid, and maybe they have an idea of what they could do, but there's an apathy there, almost a despair there, and I see it more often than I even care to, where people are saying it doesn't really matter what I do. It's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference. Our decline is inevitable, and I'm not going to get out there and sweat and bleed and cry for an exercise in futility. What do you tell people who are in that situation psychologically?
Exactly what Charlie Kirk said. Turn off your television, forget about politics, and open up your Bible. Open your Bible and read. And that it's harsh to some people, but they really need to step back, because it's not about them. And when we get overwhelmed and when we freeze, it's usually because we're not looking above. We're thinking that everything needs to be solved by us and that we're the solution. There's only one solution. That's Christ. That's God.
Amen.
And when my mom taught me this long, because she dealt with depression, and that kind of ran in our family or whatever. But she always, not something I did, but that she always told me, action. Whenever you feel overwhelmed or anything, action will always give you a different mindset. It's like you take the focus off of you, whether it's go take a walk, whether it's, do something, for a friend. I tell people in the audience that come, I said, you're a part of this beautiful tapestry. And the tapestry has many different colors and different shapes and sizes and forms. But without any of that, the tapestry isn't beautiful.
Yeah.
And each and every one of us have a different call from God. I mean, it may be that you just need to check on your neighbor. And that will propel whatever it is. Maybe you need to be I need volunteers. I cannot put this on alone without people just volunteering and helping. And it's so beautiful to ask somebody, well, what's your passion and purpose? And then they start talking and I say, fabulous. This is where we need you. And that's really how we can get outside of ourselves and kind of get out of that funk. That hope, the hopelessness is because we're looking for solutions within ourselves. Once we get in communion and we start coming together, then all the solutions actually, they're presented because God presents them.
It's true. I know you're close to General Flynn, and so he just put out a really powerful video this past week about us being at war. And I just wondered if you had any insight. Do you feel like we have moved into a new phase of the war, just like very, very recently? And if so, what phase would you say we're in?
Well, General Flynn is a good friend, and he's such an amazing, he's definitely the people's general. He wrote 3 books with his good friend and a good friend of a wonderful soldier and warrior for freedom and Christ, Boone Cutler. He wrote 3 books, Fifth Generation War. They're all a citizen's guide. That's the name of them. The topics are Fifth Generation War, AI, and the church. And so we're on 5th generation war, and we've been in that for quite a long time. It's just that people are recognizing it. The one thing that everybody, I would assume 90% of the population, can recognize: lawfare. Lawfare is a way that we have visualized with President Trump. But it's existed for quite a while. General Flynn is a huge attack on lawfare. They tried to silence him by wrongfully accusing him through it. Really, he was the catalyst to the Russia.
Yeah, he was.
Dossier, everything. So that's lawfare. So that was back in 2016. When he was a national security advisor. And before then, he was appointed by Obama as the DNI, Defense Intelligence.
National Security Advisor.
National, thank you. And, he brought him in from Afghanistan because he had written a 250-page intel about how we weren't winning the war in Afghanistan. His brother was on the front line, Charlie, and he had, besides just intel, he had a brother that was delivering the truth. And he wrote that, he sent it to the Joint Judiciary Committee, and they did not want that voice to be heard. So what did they do? They hired him to be National Security Advisor, and then actually the Defense Intelligence.
Yeah. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. Yeah.
Yeah. The acronyms get all flipped up.
Yeah.
So they brought him in front of Congress, and they wanted him to lie, and he refused. So because of that, they fired him. And then then when President Trump came in, they told him, the 2 people that do not hire General Flynn, and then also, Kim Jong-un, those are the 2 people that you have to be most aware of. Well, President Trump hired him, and, very, very quickly they eliminated that. So going back, we're in 5th generation war. 5th generation war has lawfare taking over the mainstream media, being communications and narrative. Without weapons and bullets, we have been under attack for quite a while. It's just a little more visible because President Trump had the wisdom to call mainstream media out, fake news. That was the beginning. So we could actually learn that we need to research and find other source of information so we're not controlled by the narrative. So because communication is part of the war. So we're in a spiritual war, a war against good and evil, and the prize are our souls. And if that doesn't stand the hair up on the back of your neck, then you need to do a little soul searching. But we're also in an information war. Not everybody is getting the same information, and I like to say, AKA the truth. that's the two pillars of where we are in America. We're in a spiritual war and we're in an information war. So once you realize and can come and verbalize that evil exists, then you can kind of start understanding the spiritual war, because there is evil out there. It's penetrating in all, like you said, in all aspects of our life. If you look at the Georgia Guidestones, the rod of God just dissolved them very quickly, and that gave it their whole plan, because evil has to announce what they're doing. That's just their contract with the devil. And so the Georgia Guidestones told it exactly what they were going to do, is depopulation. So depopulation, how can you do that? Vaccines, food, water, bioweapons, things of that sort. And then you move into the mind, which is communication, control, character assassination. When you have a mainstream media, if you have evil that has mainstream media at their disposal to have 4 a.m. talking points that the whole world is regurgitating a same narrative, it's shown that it only takes so much if you repeat a lie till people start believing it. So that's part of the war. And then going back to the video, yes, I saw General Flynn's video, and he has he works every day with President Trump. You know, whether everybody wants to have a name next to, what cabinet, he is a resource to Trump. He has an office in D.C. now. He spends majority of his time in D.C. Timing is everything. Just like President Trump and Bobby and the HHS cabinet or officers delivered last week about Tylenol. There was, in the truther community, there was a huge letdown, oh my gosh, in the Maha movement, he's talking about not Tylenol. He didn't talk about vaccines, how bad.
Right.
But you have to understand, I shared with you, the veil was lifted to me in my walk into truth.
Benghazi.
How long did it take? And then and that was the economic. That was, I saw how communication had power with 08 and how quickly everything changed with the housing crisis. And then the same thing reared its head in Benghazi. Yeah, right. It was a video. No,
Yeah.
And then we've got the pandemic, which COVID and 2020. And before that, President Trump, winning the election, and then him just being the lawfare and the attacks and how much he actually got done in his first administration with every type of obstacle. And
just extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinary. So again, to answer your question, it takes so much layering. We have been lied to and brainwashed, and the whole world would collapse if if the narrative could be, if the truth could actually be delivered in a 20-minute speech.
Yeah.
So there's layering.
Evidence, let me say this, evidence, Amy, of the grip and the power and the stranglehold that the traditional legacy media has had on the American people for so long. The ultimate evidence of that is that there is still a significant population of Americans that still believe them despite all of the lies that they've told, all of the proven lies. I mean, and I ask myself, how many times does a person have to be lied to before they stop believing the person or the institutions that are lying to them? When does that happen?
It's not enough, right?
Yeah.
I say the same thing.
But you're doing a great service in waking people up, you and your organization, for sure. And we're just very, very proud of everything that you're doing, and in a relatively short period of time.
It's amazing. It's amazing what God can do, and all glory be to God, because it's only myself and Casper who's doing this. We're pulling this off without any sponsors. We're asking for people, to sponsor, because at some point, these speakers, they need paid. They're doing tremendous work. They do. We do honor a day's wage, but they're keeping on, because we do know that this is the will of God. He wants to give us a reprieve. He wants America to succeed, but it won't until all of us do our part. And there's one leader. President Trump is doing amazing things. Poor guy. He's still getting, a lot of our complaints because he's not doing fast enough. And this man has just been incredible with the number of EOs in the first 24 hours of his being 45, president number 45. And then we're such an instant gratification type of society, and we just need to exhale. We need to do our part, and as soon as you get involved, you realize how hard it is to get things moved. It really takes each and every one of us to rise up, stand up, and say enough is enough. And if you can't do that for yourself, do that for your children, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, because we were so privileged to live, even though there are a lot of lies that have started a long time ago. In all aspects, we got to live the American dream, and that's not going to be. And we are so close. I mean, it's not like, oh, okay, if we just do a good job in this next year. No, we've got to, by January, we've got to be out the door, having our candidates, like you said, Danielle, that we need to have constitutional candidates. No more rhinos. No more people with agendas that are against our Constitution, our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, just for the good of humanity. No more wars, endless wars. People see through all that.
Yeah.
We're the majority, and if we don't stand up arm in arm, we don't have a voice, because they can attack one of us, but if 1,000 of us are standing, it's going to be really hard to knock that 1,000 down. So that's
100%.
Empower people to.
A timely reminder of what Jefferson said along the lines of what you're saying, Amy, that democracy is not determined by a majority; it's determined by a majority who have the courage to participate. And we have to remember that, the courage to get involved. And I hope everybody remembers that. And certainly your daily life and activities are a reflection of that, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
And tell us
your voice, because we need to reach. We need people to know about us and to join us and to volunteer.
Where are you headed next?
Virginia, D.C. area. So November 14th to 15th. And so November 11th is Veterans Day. And President Trump is having a huge parade in D.C. So we want to kind of capitalize on that at the end of the week and get people together. The church venues have been wonderful for us, because they're already set up in the AV and area, and they have a good basis of people that are already aligned with a Christian worldview. So yes, and then December, we are already at a church 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida. So that's December 12th and 13th. And then we've been called to Arizona in January. And people are like, okay, you're coming every month. And we're like, yeah, we're coming every month, because we can't stop. We have to engage cities to get on board, know that they're important. Everybody is important. And it is a shame, Chris, that people feel overwhelmed. But that's the enemy's playground. That's exactly where he wants you. He wants you out. He wants you.
The wearing down of the saints.
Yep. Danielle reminds me and many others of that all the time. That's where he wants us.
Yes. And when you're lukewarm, he doesn't ever, that's good. You can just stay over there because you're no threat. But we need to be in community, because as soon as we pick up our sword of the Holy Spirit and the Word of God, he attacks. And I personally have those. So and within the families, and he does that where he wants you to stop. That's why it's so important to be in communion. Christ wants us to be in communion with each other, to encourage each other, to lift each other up, to pray for each other, and that's the only way. When you know that it's mission over ego, and your goal is to save America and ultimately save the world, it gets bigger than you can. So it has to be from God.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, and we want you, we'll extend the invitation, Amy, to come down to Louisiana. We'd be happy to help you put something together here. We'd love that. If you come anywhere in the neighborhood, just let us know. We'll definitely go out of our way to help you get that together.
100%.
We would honor that. If you have a church in mind that you can make connection, it would be wonderful. We can start planning. We're all about 2026.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Always forward looking, always forward looking. Amy Young, thank you for being with us today. Keep up the good work. And hopefully at some point in the near future, we'll be able to meet you right here in God's country down here in Louisiana.
We'll make that happen. Thank you so much. God bless you. And thank you for what an honor it is to be on your podcast. I really appreciate what you guys do and bringing the truth and being a reach the voice. You're part of the solution. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.
Wow, Chris, I can see how she can plan events by herself, basically. She's got so much energy. She's got so much passion. And I know you can tell the joy of the Lord is her strength.
No question about it. She seems happy. And I was thinking as she was talking, she has 6 kids. And even before she started doing what she's doing now full time, she had a full time job. She was taking care of a family member with Parkinson's, yet she was still devoting time to better our body politic and to return really our government and our constitution to the people. So what excuse do any of us have? We don't
Right.
have any excuses. And yet we're always able to come up with an excuse for failure to act. And so I would just gently encourage Danielle, all of our listeners, to do something, to do one thing every day that helps our state and or your local community be a better place to live. And so much of it is instinctive. You don't have to be trained necessarily in advocacy in order to do things that you know instinctively are good for your community. It's just a matter of making up your mind and recognizing on a core level that you matter, that you were put here for a reason. You were not put here to be idle. You were put here to act. You were put here to engage and to use the gifts that God gave you. And if everybody would have that mindset, can you imagine how quickly things would turn around?
Yeah, you're so right. And I think that's a great segue, Chris, to tomorrow. I will be having a woman named Rachel Owen on For the Love of Freedom. Started a 24/7 nurses hotline that saved over 200,000 babies from being aborted just by connecting expectant mothers, crisis pregnancies, with nurses who could counsel them. So that's amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. She's obviously a person who has stepped up and done her part, listened to the call of God on her life. And then Thursday, we will be back here on the State of Freedom with Gary Musgrove, who is fighting the good fight against carbon capture, right where Chris and Alan Parish.
And Alan Parish. Well, actually, he is in Rapides Parish, but the fight is very active there as well. But he's very, very active, and is really at the spearhead, at the tip of the spear on battling against the carbon capture sequestration racket. I can't wait to have him on. A wealth of knowledge. And just a truly humble man. I think it's going to be a great experience for him to come on. But I'm blown away by your guest, Rachel, and what she's done. Can you imagine knowing that you are responsible for the fact that 200,000 human beings are alive because of your efforts that otherwise would not be here? I mean, that is a walking saint among us.
Well, and I know, Chris, your mother was very involved with crisis pregnancies and making sure that babies had a home to go to when they got here. And you know what? It's exactly what Amy just talked about. It's every single person, every single life is important to the Lord. And so whether we're saving one or we're saving literal cities worth of people, it's all in service to the Lord.
It's all in service to the Lord. It's all in his honor. No question about that. And that's what we will maintain every day. Make sure that y'all join, subscribe, and support the State of Freedom. Invite your family and friends to do so as we continue to spread our voice across Louisiana, growing more every day. And the commitment we've made to you is that we will be uncompromising in our devotion to you and uncompromising in the manner in which we speak the truth. No doubt about it. We cannot be bought off, and we need your support so that we can continue to spread the truth of liberty and freedom and justice, not only in Louisiana, but across America. The State of Freedom is for you. We're your family, and you are our family. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing, support us, talk about us, subscribe, share, and donate and advertise with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And support Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group as well. Chris is out there fighting for us in and out of legislative session, and we're edging nearer and nearer to the legislative session. Chris, I do have some things on my list that I want to talk to you about, by the way, about legislation that we need to get queued up. We need to get sponsors for in the coming session. I know it seems like it might be far away, but it is not. It's going to come so quickly up on us. So we got to, and you know what else I was reminded of yesterday in the meeting is that this is going to be an election cycle year for us. 2026 will be, right? 2026 is an election cycle year. So all these folks are going to be on their very best behavior, and we're going to have to remind people how they really voted the whole time, which I know we will do and we will take great pleasure in.
And there is nobody who knows meticulously exactly what they did, even in the shadows, more so than LACAG. So lacag.org. Support us, share as we continue moving forward. And Danielle, it's a pleasure, as always, to be with you.
You too, Chris. God bless you, and I will see you on Thursday.
You bet.
The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of men, women, and teens are experiencing around the world with the Slenderiiz drops. These homeopathic hormone-balancing drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. To learn more about the drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at Danielle@freedomstate.us or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. If you're looking to invest in physical precious metals or convert your 401k to a precious metals backed IRA, please consider making your investment with our trusted partner, Metal Stacks. Their prices regularly beat the big sites, and they have no credit card fees or minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. Just visit metalstacks.com/dwalker or get there from our website, freedomstate.us. If you're interested in the IRA conversion, drop me a message at Danielle@freedomstate.us and I can get you connected with their white glove service. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.